All right, Studio One users, this one's for you. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Emily Bowie. I'm a producer and engineer here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm so excited to announce my ultimate mixing template is now available for Studio One. And it's been a long time coming, so let's get right into it. The timestamps are available for your convenience, so feel free to skip around here and there. If you would like to help the channel out, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if this is something that you found interesting, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Also, leave me a comment. Let me know you stopped by. I'd love to hear from you. So, first thing we've got going on is the parallel compression sends. Now all of the drums will be going to the drum bus, but only the actual drum shells will be going to the drum crush. And we'll talk about the drum reverb in just a second, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So the drum bus and the drum crush are all being sent down here to our parallel processing tracks. Now these first four, the drum bus, the drum crush, music bus, and vocal bus, have all been calibrated for you. Now, they also have some plugins on them, and those plugins have been set so you can write these down. These are the settings that I use every time for the UAD 33609, and the same exact one is also on the music bus. Now, the drum crush is a little bit different. This is got the Fatso Junior on there, and these are the settings for that. Want to see somewhere all the way up to 10, maybe 15, depending on the sound, for all of those buttons to light up. Now, the way that these are calibrated is that we are sending from the drum here in parallel, and I'm looking to get somewhere around 3 to 4, nothing over 4 really, dBs of compression with 1 dB added back into the overall mix. And that is where these return faders come in. So this is all calibrated for 1 dB of overall gain back into the mix. And that goes for the drum bus, the drum crush, and the music bus. The vocal bus will be adding 2 dBs of overall gain back in. And if you have heard of this, probably, maybe, from Vance Powell, I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, audio engineer mixer out there today. And his techniques are pretty golden. So I have adapted them to work in the box. And Vance does this all on his SSL console. But I love the results from it, so that's why I use it every time. So these are pre-calibrated for you. You don't have to worry about them at all. In case it gets, kind of mixed up and you move them around and you forget, you can go back. I do have a tone generator set up in here. So to demonstrate that for you, I've got a tone generator and I've just got that set up. It's going to be in bypass. But if you ever need to reference back to it and recalibrate the parallel buses, then it'll be there. And I'm just going to show you how I go about setting that up. And so I've got the stock tone generator set on that. And we're just going to be getting a signal. And I'm going to have it mute here so that you don't have to hear it. But this is the signal that we're going to be feeding those parallel buses to calibrate the return volume back into the overall mix. So I've got all 4 of those parallels already set up on the send here, and we're going to be putting those in a pre-fader because I want to be able to send a certain amount of the signal or of, one of the drums to that compressor or whatever we're using so that we are getting around 3 to 4 dBs worth of compression on that. And the drum bus is going to be having the 33609, the Neve 33609 on that. And these are the settings that you'll use. So the way that we can see how much level we're adding back in is through this VU meter plugin. And I've got that as the first thing on my mix bus so that nothing else is interfering with that. Nothing else is contributing to an increase in volume or whatever. It's the first thing. And so we'll pull that down so that we can start from scratch here. And so the signal that you see on the VU meter is that it is sending to 4. And it doesn't matter where you start. It's just somewhere that you can see that you know where you need to stop after adding 1 dB of gain back into the overall mix. So let's bring that up. You're kind of thinking this, and the idea of this is kind of, we're kind of setting our makeup gain, right, back into the overall mix. So let's increase the return of that parallel bus, and we're watching our VU meter. So there you go. Now we have added 1 dB back to the overall mix. And this is a return after that signal has gone through the 33609 and we're at a level of compression that we want. And we've now added back in 1 dB of overall gain. And so just remember, when you are adding these back in, and I'll have this written down in a PDF for you so that you can reference back to, but the drum bus, the drum crush, and the music bus will get 1 dB of gain back in, and the vocal bus will get 2. So now that we got that out of the way, let's just kind of flow through this a little bit quicker. Just some standard stuff: percussion tracks, bass, acoustic guitars, stereo paired, and I've got some electric guitars, just whatever you need to use. I've got steel on here because, hello, Nashville. If you need to add in a fiddle, I've got a strings track right here, along with piano, B3 organ, any sort of orchestral instruments, horns, and our electronic synths, pads, and effects. And they've all got some basic EQ things going on there. The guitars, I like to use the Brainworks SSL and or situation, the API here. And I've already got some points that I really like for electric guitars. I've got the API muted because I think most of the times I will want to start out with the SSL, but you never know. It just depends on the kind of overall tone that you're going for here and what is best for the overall sound. So as you can see, all of those other things that we've got going on besides the bass are going to another parallel track with our music bus. And again, that's adding back in 1 dB of overall gain. Since the bass is different, let's go ahead and talk about that. And all of these are being sent to our group tracks down here. All of the group tracks are going to be in yellow. And we got a little bit of processing going on each of those group tracks. And like I said, I haven't been in Studio One for too long. It's going on about 6 months now, maybe 7. And I'm not used to the panning. So I have this dual pan on here so that I'm able to pan my drums. Now, if this is stupid and that there's some other way of doing this, please let me know. I'm not doing a whole lot of mixing in Studio One. I'm still in Pro Tools and Luna because I'm just familiar with it. I just happen to get a ton of requests for Studio One stuff, even though I'm not using it, but I wanted to be able to incorporate my mixing template for Studio One users. And so I purchased the cross-grade fee, I believe it is, from Pro Tools, and wanted to create this style of template for Studio One users. So if I say anything that's incorrect or that I'm saying that it doesn't have, and it does, just let me know, and I will make those corrections. But as far as I know, no multiple outputs, and the panning I'm just not familiar with. But I did see something about the dual pan that I could do my left and right with. So I like to pan my drums, not hard left and hard right, but somewhere around, 75% on each. We're still wide, we're just not bent back wide. So drums, I'm sending that to a chamber. I've got every group track sending to the chamber, all of them, because I want to add a little bit of everything to that chamber sound, just very slightly. It makes a huge difference. It really, really glues things together, and I think that's a huge key, number one key, besides parallel compression. So we got the drums sent to the chamber. I've also got that going to this thing called Taste, and that is the Acme Opticom. Now this just gives me that kind of cool, trashy sound without being too trashy. It's just very, harmonic and just some good tones, and we'll just barely sprinkle that in depending on what we need from it, just to give it some more vibe. Percussion, very simple, just a stock compressor on that, going to the chamber. Bass, we've got the CLA 2A on that, just saving a little bit of DSP power for myself. And if that's not gonna do it for me and I need a little bit more punch, then I've got the distressor on that, the UAD distress. Now, we've got our bass compression and our bass sub. Those are both parallels. Bass compression, I've got a Fairchild and another distressor, just to add a little bit more punch when needed. The bass sub is the R bass from Waves. This is if I just need a little bit more of that fundamental girth. Probably gonna go somewhere between 80 and 90 with that, just depending on the song. But I do like to blend those in parallel style instead of putting it directly on the group track itself or the audio track. Acoustic guitars, just got the L2 on there. Just a little bit of ceiling just in case. I'm not really trying to change the overall sound and tone of acoustic guitars. I just want to bring up the volume a little bit and bring up those dynamics, make it sound like it's fitting right nicely in the mix. Along with some effects here, which we can talk about in just a minute. These are going to be kind of the last thing on the template. We've got effects pedals, make things wide, and we've got some reverb in there. Similar things going on with the electric guitar groups here. I've got the LA3A, which I really like on electric guitars, but if they're sitting there and they're great, it's just the L2 again on all of them. We're just, I'm just wanting to bring up the dynamics, fill everything out. And for all of the orchestral type things, just the L2. Since we got a little bit of EQ points going on here, these are just some things that have always tend to work fairly well with me. And for effects tracks, if you've got just sound effects, anything like that, you're working with sync, just the L2. We either bring it up or we, pull down the volume. We're just filling things out with all of that. I want to go back over here. So these are our vocal audio tracks. This is where we're dropping in to mix or that we're recording on top of. First up, background vocals. I just like to order the backgrounds before the lead vocals. Fab filter, that's it. High pass filter. We're sending these through 3 parallel processing tracks. I also have videos showing you what this is a little bit more in detail. So I'm not going to dive too far into that. Hopefully you can just get the overall picture of what this is accomplishing. So background vocals are going straight to the background group. I have a set for background vocals A, background vocal B. Just in case. If you only have, 2 backgrounds, then we don't need the B. But it's there if you need it. And all we have, again, just another filter in case we, need to EQ a little bit differently after grouping them together. And the compression of an 1176 Blue Stripe. Now here's the fun part. Lead vocals. I have lead vocal B and A, which this probably needs to go over here. Same thing, just in case you have 2 lead vocals. If you have 2 lead vocalists or if it's a duet. First things first, on the lead vocal track, we are rolling off the low end because we don't need it. Next, we've got our 3 different parallel processing tracks. Now, what this is doing is just adding our tone, and it's thickening things up a lot. It's bringing it out front and center right there for you to listen to. When you've got your vocal right, when you're sitting here between your speakers, and it sounds like you have a 3rd speaker right in front of you with the lead vocal. That's when you know you've got your vocals placed right. So, how I accomplish that is parallel processing. Again, number 1 key to great sounding mixes is parallel processing. So the first thing that we're sending that to is the crush bus. Next, we've got a buzz track. And the 3rd, we have a vocal clean track. Now, what are all of these doing? Well, I'm going to do this in real time. So here is our first set. Here is for our lead vocal A. So what we want to add to that on our crush is the fatso. Now I like to have it where all of these buttons are lit up. Warmth at about 5. And I want to send in somewhere between 6 and 5, and output the same. For our vocal buzz, I need the 1073. And we're gonna get some pretty good grit on that. The secret is that we need to pull this all the way down here. Make sure that we're not overkilling that. Because I have these pulled down already, because once you're adding all of this back into here, and this is pre-fader, we're not even worried about this right here. We want to send the exact same thing to every one of these. So I've got those pulled down, because if you didn't, it would probably blow your ears out. So let's do the vocal clean group here, and we're going to use Vance's preset of start here for vocals. Perfect. Now on this compression, I want to hit, so hit it pretty hard, and I will just drop all of these other ones over for our second lead vocal. So once it goes through all of these, then that goes out of our lead vocal group down here. Got a few things on this. Again, we've got our EQ, because, when you're combining sounds and the audio is affecting each of those parallels a little bit differently, and so you come out with a new sound. So that's why I've always got an EQ there. Next up, RVox. Not used every time, but a lot of the times. This is something that's going to bring everything out and pull up more dynamics even more. I just really love what the RVox does. And then if we need to kind of tame down just a little bit more after that RVox, I've got the Fairchild. Because I love just that subtleness, that little squeeze that it puts on vocals. But as you can see, that is in bypass at the moment, because I don't like to start out with it. Now that lead vocal sound, that overall sound, is going to be going to a lot of these effects here. But the first one that I've got set up is the vocal bus. Like I said in the beginning, the vocal bus is adding back in 2 dBs of overall volume back into the mix after it's gone through the compression there. And on this one, it's an 1176, but it's this newer version that they have. The AE. Thinking it kind of combines the other two. Also have that on a preset for start here for vocals. Again, go into the chamber always. And then I just sort of play around with the effects, like which one's gonna work. And all of my effects are down here. This is the chamber track, and these are gonna be all of my reverbs, and then your delays and echoes right here. Sometimes I'll even send the vocals to the widener. Just depends. So yeah, whatever you have, the effects that you like. I've got a spring reverb here that doesn't have a plugin on it. The only spring reverb plugin that I have is the Pro Tools one, because it's all I ever really needed, and I'm just not into buying things to just buy them. I have to really like them and try them out a whole lot. But anyways, if you have a spring reverb, that's where I would put that one. Everything else kind of just, falls into place here with drum reverb. I've got a mono reverb because sometimes that's all you need on a vocal. Just depends on the song. Plate, got the EMT 140 and Abbey Road here in bypass. A hall reverb, I love that. Got the Valhalla Vintage for that. And our slap delay, Echo Boy, can't go wrong with that. I've got that at around 110 or 115 milliseconds there, because that's what the kind of Sun Studio sound was going for. And I'm a huge fan of Sam Phillips. Delay, pretty straightforward stuff. There's just the other Valhalla delay there and standard Echo Boy. And I think I probably have that set to ping pong in case I need that sort of effect. The other one here is the Supermassive. That thing gets Supermassive. And our effects pedals, this is kind of where our guitars were going. I like the amplitude here. I can, you know, put up different stomp boxes and different combinations of that. And at the same time, I've got the Sound Toys effects racks that we can combine all kinds of stuff with. The Ozone 9 imager, that's self-explanatory. You can add vocals to it, you can add your guitars to it, you know, anything that we're just trying to add a little bit more of space value to. And that brings us to the mix bus. Now, I know probably a lot of you Studio One users don't use a mix bus. I am from the Pro Tools realm, and I just like to have one there. It's just like to have that overall group that I can control before it hits my output here, which I have named monitor left and right. And that's just where I like to have all my metering plugins anyways. So we have that VU meter there. It's not doing anything. It's just letting us know what the volume is, what our gain structure is on the way in to hitting these plugins. And first in line on that is the Universal Audio Pultec. Adding some low, adding some highs. That's kind of what this thing is for. It's just to kind of fill out those areas. And I'm not too big on the whole smiley face thing, but this is a smiley face. It's just very subtle. I don't use very much of this. This is in between 1 and 0. And I'm always starting out at 10 here. Next thing, we've got our dangerous back EQ. And I've got a video that goes over my mix bus, and it hasn't really changed too much. So, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, just kind of let you know what I've got. And I'm mainly just using this on my mix bus for filtering purposes. I may add a little bit of 18, you never know. Now, in a mastering situation, I would be using that in a mid-side format. Next, I've got the Fab filter. This is using everything, mostly cuts. Even though I love to boost, you should boost. This is not a cut only situation. And a lot of times if I'm not able to clear up certain elements, I'll go on here and try to clear it up in an overall picture. Whether that's mid-side, whether that's in stereo, whether that's, you know, just cutting out some junk. And sometimes it never gets used. One that does get used a lot is the digital V3 here. And I've always got that mono maker set to 100 Hertz. And we'll just kind of go from there. You know, a lot of times I'm looking somewhere between 300 and 450 that I'm going to cut out in the mids. And I'm going to do something around 500 here on my stereo. And then we're adding some air there if need be. Next up, we've got the Moog EQ4. This airband, that's all I'm using every time. 40K, adding 1 dB of that in there. I know they say we don't hear that, but it adds something really nice. And my bus compressor, my mix bus compressor is, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's the 2500. And I'm not compressing too much. I'm always, you know, 99% of the time, on a ratio 2:1 here. Attack, maybe sort of fast, maybe not really. And a slow release. And I'm just gonna be, you know, somewhere around here. I almost don't want to let my meter get back to 0 for too long. I just think that it sounds better when it's kind of always, you know, it's always kind of squeezing a little bit. Not much, just a little bit, and not too pumpy. I don't really like the pumpy sound just too much. That's why I'm always kind of just wanting it, you know, just like that. Not necessarily, you know, that whole pumping thing. I don't really get it. But tone, medium, old. And lastly on here is our tape machine. Cannot live without it. Usually I'm just looking for this little target red right here. That's where I want it to lay. I want it to, you know, hit right in here pretty much all the time. What I like to do is just kind of toggle through things and see what sounds the best. This is probably not going to change on the mix at the 1/2" tape. I just think that sounds the best. And sometimes I'll tweak the bias a little bit just to see where it kind of opens up the most. And like I said, over here on the, you know, monitoring out, this is where it would bounce down, you know, SonarWorks. I'm always checking, you know, to see how the room was calibrated and see what sounds best on that. Sometimes I don't use it the whole time, but, you know, just putting it in there to reference things. Total balance, I love that. Kind of, see if we're in the vicinity, if things are sounding, if you've got something sticking way out on the bass, then you probably need to pull that down. And that is about it. Like I said, it's simple. It's not too involved. It's got the really cool parallel processing that's already calibrated for you, and it's got the parallel processing on the vocals. And I'm telling you, once you drop in your previously recorded tracks to mix onto these, you're, halfway. You're 80% there, I promise you. And you can customize this how you need to. This is a very foundation heavy template. That's how I believe all templates should start. And once you've mixed a certain genre in this, and or one song on an album, then you save this and you save your EQ moves, because you want similar sounding things on the same project. Or after you've made a few and you're like, that one song that I did 2 months ago sounds very similar to the one I'm doing now. Let me pull that template up, put those audio tracks on there, and you're going to be 90% done. One thing you'll notice is I do not cake these down with plugins. You see people on every single track, they've got 10 plugins. Why? Don't do that. The secret sauce is parallel processing. I promise you. I promise you. And you will not be overloading your computer or your CPU problems. Lord. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. If you are a STUDIOONE user, you can download this template right now. Just go to my website, fairairmusic.com. It'll be there for you to download, along with the PDF that'll show you all in text form how to route all these things that you can reference back to. And feel free to reference back to this video from time to time if you kind of forget where you need to go and route things, and if the drum bus, which tracks have the drum crush. So feel free to do that. If you enjoyed this video and found something useful and helpful in it, please consider hitting that thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to check out all the other templates that I have in case you do use other DAWs. I also have a mixing course that's there. It's the best and easiest way to help support the channel, and it allows me to continue putting out content just like this. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. We'll talk soon.